The air at the Metropolitan Legacy Ball wasn't just filled with the scent of orchids and old money. It was thick with the silent screams of ambition. Tonight, the 1% of the 1% gathered under the massive vaulted ceilings, their diamonds competing with the crystal chandeliers. But in the shadows of this glittering affair, a waitress named Chloe Bennett was holding a silver tray and a secret. A secret so profound that when the city's most arrogant billionaire dared her to dance, he didn't just light a fuse, he detonated a bomb that would shatter his world and expose the truth in front of everyone. The first sharp, aching staccato notes of the bandoneon cut through the ballroom. Libertango. A song of prisoners, of passion, of a desperate, clawing freedom. It was a song for two, a song of fight, of seduction, of intricate, warring partnership. And Chloe Bennett was alone. A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. "It's a tango! He sabotaged her!" "This is a massacre!" Clayton Vanderbilt's grin was wide and predatory. He had her. She would try to waltz to a tango, look like a fool, and he would win. He had just saved himself $1 million and created the night's best party story. On the dance floor, Chloe closed her eyes for 1 second. She breathed in the rosin and sweat of 1,000 past rehearsals. She heard her father's voice, not the kind one, but the strict one, the master. "Do not fight the music, Clo-Clo. Surrender to it. Then, when it trusts you, lead it." She opened her eyes. The music swelled, the violin crying out. Chloe moved. It was not a waltz. It was not a stumble. It was an explosion. She began with the follower's part. A broken tango, a dance of longing for a partner who wasn't there. Her body snapped into a line of impossible grace, her arms carving the air. Her cheap, sensible waitress shoes, which should have been anchors, became weapons. She used the rubber soles for sharp, percussive taps that echoed her father's tap-and-release technique, a sound that cut right through the orchestra's melody. She executed a flawless bolio, her leg whipping through the air in a controlled, violent arc that made several women in the front row gasp. She spun into a series of okos, her hips tracing a perfect liquid figure eight, her torso remaining uncannily still. She was pure, disciplined energy. "My God," a man whispered near Clayton. "Look at her form. That's not amateur." Clayton's smile had vanished. His champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. This was not the clumsy waitress from 10 minutes ago. This was someone else. Brenda Holloway, his date, stammered, "Clayton, who is she?" Clayton said nothing. His knuckles were white on his glass. The music reached its crescendo, the fiery, frantic middle section. Chloe had been dancing the part of the one led. Now, in a breathtaking shift, she became the leader. Her posture changed. Her movements became dominant, sharp, and commanding. She danced with a ghost, her hands shaping the air where a man would be. She led this invisible partner, spinning him, dipping him, her footwork a blur of intricate, aggressive steps. She was a general commanding an army. She was fire and ice. This was not a waitress. This was not a dancer. This was a master. She was using the Bennett Lefebvre method, a revolutionary style her father had invented, blending classical ballet's lines with the raw, grounded passion of tango and the controlled chaos of modern dance. It was a style known to only a handful of professionals in the world. As the music crashed toward its final chord, Chloe executed a gravity fall, a signature Bennett Lefebvre move. She spun, launching herself into the air, and at the peak of her rotation, allowed her body to fall, catching herself a whisper of an inch from the marble floor. Her body held rigid by a core strength that seemed impossible. The music stopped. Chloe rose slowly, her back to Clayton. She was breathing hard, her black uniform clinging to her. She struck the final pose, head held high, arm outstretched, a figure of defiant, undeniable victory. For 3 full seconds, the only sound in the Metropolitan Legacy Ball was the echo of the last chord. 300 of the most powerful people in New York stood, utterly, completely silent. Then from a table near the back, a single person began to clap. A slow, rhythmic, deliberate sound. It was an older woman, her hair a shock of silver, her eyes a piercing blue. She wore a simple black dress and a Cartier necklace of such blinding size it looked like a piece of celestial armor. She was Genevieve Beaufort, the grande dame of New York's old money aristocracy. She was the chair of the Children's Hospital, and she was not smiling. She was watching Chloe with a look of intense, clinical recognition. Her applause broke the spell. The room didn't just clap, it erupted. It was a standing ovation, thunderous. People were cheering, whistling. The orchestra members were on their feet, tapping their bows on their music stands. Chloe turned. She walked off the dance floor. The crowd parted for her, as if she were Moses, and they were the Red Sea. She did not stop at the edge. She did not stop to talk to the stunned guests. She walked directly, step by step, until she was standing in front of Clayton Vanderbilt. His face was a mask of puce-colored rage. His circle of sycophants looked terrified, avoiding his and her gaze. "You," he hissed, his voice trembling. You're a professional. You tricked me." Chloe's voice was low, clear, and carried in the sudden hush that fell as the applause died down. "No, Mr. Vanderbilt, you tricked yourself. You picked the song. I just danced to it." She held out her hand. "But you are correct about one thing. I am a professional, and professionals get paid. Now, I believe you owe the hospital $1 million, and you owe me an apology." "An apology?" he snarled. "That was the agreement," Chloe said, her voice like steel. "You said if I was spectacular, you would apologize. Was that not spectacular?" She turned her head slightly. "Mrs. Beaufort, as chair of the hospital, what did you think?" Genevieve Beaufort's voice boomed from across the room. "I thought, Mr. Vanderbilt, that it was the bargain of the century. Your apology, please, so we can all hear it." Trapped, utterly and completely trapped, by a waitress, by Genevieve, in front of everyone. His reputation as a man who could not be beaten was shattering. He stared at Chloe, his eyes promising murder. Through gritted teeth, he spat out the words. "I apologize." "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that," Chloe said sweetly. "I apologize," he roared. The room flinched. Chloe smiled, a small, cold, terrifying smile. "Thank you. Now, about the donation. You'll have your lawyers." "It will be done," he seethed. "Wonderful." Chloe nodded, her business concluded. She turned to find her manager, Mr. Hines, standing right behind her, his face the color of ash. "Bennett," he whispered, his hand shaking. "My office. Now." She looked back at Clayton. He was watching her, his face a storm. He hadn't just lost. He'd been humiliated. And Clayton Vanderbilt was not a man who forgot. Mr. Hines grabbed her elbow. "You are fired." The service hallway smelled of stale bread and bleach. It was a jarring, fluorescent-lit tunnel that connected the gilded world of the Legacy Ball to the concrete reality of the alley outside. "What were you thinking?" Mr. Hines was pacing, pulling at his thin hair. "No, don't answer that. You weren't thinking. You humiliated a board member, a Vanderbilt. Do you know who he is?" "Yes," Chloe said calmly, untying her apron. "He's the man who just donated $1 million to the oncology wing." "He's the man who will have my job," Hines shrieked. "He'll have this catering company blacklisted from every event in the city. You're done. Get your things. Go." Chloe didn't argue. She knew the rules. The ghost couldn't become solid. The help couldn't have a face, let alone a triumphant one. She had won the battle, but she had, as expected, lost the war. She retrieved her thin coat and her backpack from a locker, changed out of her uniform and into her own worn jeans and t-shirt, and pushed open the heavy steel door to the alley. The applause from the ballroom was a faint, far-away thunder. The cold, damp November air hit her face. She was unemployed. Again. Her mother's medical bills were piled on their tiny kitchen table. The $1 million felt very, very far away. She walked to the end of the alley, her footsteps echoing. A long, black car was idling at the curb. It was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a car so quiet, so imposing, it looked less like a vehicle and more like a block of polished night. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, the tinted rear window glided down. Inside, bathed in the soft glow of the interior light, was Genevieve Beaufort. She was alone, her diamond necklace seeming to pulse with its own energy. "Miss Bennett," she said. Her voice was not kind. It was crisp, like dry ice. "Get in." Chloe stopped. I'm sorry, Ma'am. I am not in the habit of repeating myself, nor am I in the habit of conducting conversations with the sidewalk. You have 5 seconds before I drive away, and you become precisely what Clayton Vanderbilt wishes you to be. Nothing. Chloe, seeing no other option, pulled the heavy door and slid onto the plush leather seat. The door closed with a silent, bank vault thunk, sealing them in absolute silence. The car smelled of old leather and expensive peppery perfume. The car pulled away from the curb, gliding silently into the city's bloodstream. Genevieve Beaufort did not look at her. She stared straight ahead at the rain-slicked streets. "You dance the Bennett Lefebvre method. It's unmistakable." Chloe's blood turned to ice. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in almost a decade. "I saw the broken compass turn," Genevieve continued, as if reciting a grocery list. "And the gravity fall. Your father's signatures. I haven't seen them danced with such purity since I saw Pierre Bennett himself perform at the Palais Garnier in 1998. He was magnificent." Chloe's voice was a whisper. "He was my father." Genevieve turned her head. Her blue eyes were not soft. They were analytical, probing. "I thought so. You have his eyes, and his arrogance." "It's not arrogance," Chloe said, finding her voice. "It's confidence." "It's arrogance, my dear," Genevieve corrected her. "But in this world, that is a compliment. I am Genevieve Beaufort. I was a patron of your father's. A tragedy, what happened to him. And a greater tragedy, what happened to his legacy." Chloe looked down at her hands. The old, familiar ache threatened to rise up, but she pushed it down. "His partner, Lawrence Adler, he ran the company into the ground after my father died. He said it was debt. He said my father's art wasn't commercial." "He was a fool," Genevieve said. "He was a liar," Chloe countered, a sudden venom in her voice. "When my father died, I was at Juilliard, on a full scholarship. I had to drop out. My mother, she got sick. The medical bills. Adler sold the company, the copyrights, the studio, everything, for pennies in a bankruptcy auction. He told us it was all gone. He disappeared." "He did," Genevieve said, "to a private island in the Caribbean, with $50 million. Chloe's head snapped up. "What?" "It wasn't mismanagement, my dear. It was a hostile, deliberate, and exquisitely planned theft. Your father's partner didn't just run it into the ground. He was paid to." "Paid? By who?" The Rolls-Royce turned onto Park Avenue, its tires hissing over the wet pavement. "Think, Chloe. Who in that room tonight profits from owning the most revolutionary dance technique of the modern era? Who is a tech billionaire? Who has a proprietary algorithm that generates hyper-realistic movement for films and video games? Who is on the board of every cultural institution in this city, desperate to prove his new money is better than old? The pieces clicked into place, one after another, forming a picture of such perfect, cold-blooded evil that Chloe felt sick. "No," she breathed. "Oh, yes," Genevieve said, a grim satisfaction in her voice. "The man who bought the scraps of your father's bankrupted company, the man who holds the copyright to Pierre Bennett's entire life's work, the man who just watched you dance, is Clayton Vanderbilt." Chloe felt the world tilt. The plush, silent interior of the Rolls-Royce suddenly felt like a coffin. Vanderbilt. He owns my father's work? "He owns your father's soul," Genevieve said, her voice devoid of sympathy. "His first major company wasn't Vanderbilt Tech. It was a shell corporation called IP Acquisitions, Inc. He hunts for distressed assets. Your father's company, thanks to his partner's mismanagement, was the most distressed and most valuable asset on the market. The crown jewel wasn't the company name, it was the data." "The data?" "Your father was a genius, Chloe, but he was also a modern man. He was motion capturing his entire catalogue, every technique, every new piece of choreography. He thought it was for preservation. Vanderbilt saw it as a product." Genevieve leaned forward, the city lights flashing across her face. "Vanderbilt took that data and fed it into an AI. He created Aura, a predictive algorithm that can generate perfectly new Bennett Lefebvre-style choreography on demand. It's the core of his entertainment division. It's in every major blockbuster, every best-selling video game. It's worth billions, and he pays no royalties because he owns the source code. He owns Pierre Bennett." A cold, clear rage, purer than any she had ever known, displaced Chloe's shock. It wasn't just that he had stolen a company. He had stolen her father's very being. He had turned his art into a digital puppet. "That dance," Chloe said, her voice shaking. "Tonight. He knew." "Of course he knew," Genevieve snapped. "He's on the hospital board. He sees the gala employee lists. He knew exactly who Chloe Bennett, Waitress, was. The spill, the dare. It wasn't random. It was a test. He was bored. He was curious. He wanted to see if the daughter of the genius had any of the magic. He wanted to humiliate you for sport, to prove that you, like your father, were just another liability he could write off." The full, calculated cruelty of it hit Chloe. He hadn't just insulted a waitress, he had desecrated a grave. "Why are you telling me this?" Chloe asked, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" Genevieve smiled, and it was the smile of a great white shark. "Clayton Vanderbilt is a parasite. He's trying to do to my hospital what he did to your father. He calls it streamlining. Monetizing. He wants to cut the liabilities, the uninsured children," Chloe whispered. "Precisely. The oncology wing. He sees sick children as bad overhead. I am the chair of that board, and I have fought him for a year. But he's a new kind of monster. He's a digital shark, and I am an analog lion. We don't speak the same language." The car stopped. They were outside the Pierre, a bastion of old-world luxury. "But you, my dear," Genevieve said, turning to face her fully, "you are bilingual. You have the legacy. You have the motive. And as of tonight, you have his undivided attention. He thinks you're just a talented, angry little girl. He's arrogant. He'll underestimate you, and you will use that to destroy him. Destroy him. I don't want him beaten, Miss Bennett. I want him gone, from my board, from my city, From my world. I need proof, not just that he bought the bankrupt company. That's legal. I need proof that he orchestrated its failure. I need the link between him and Lawrence Adler. Get me that, and I can trigger a morals clause in the board's charter and have him ousted. Get me that, and I will fund your lawsuit to reclaim your father's name. This was it. The moment her life, which had been a frozen grey landscape, cracked open. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about liberation, freeing her father's ghost. What do I have to do? Chloe asked. First, Genevieve said, you will never wear those shoes again. You are no longer Chloe Bennett, the waitress. She handed Chloe a platinum-colored Amex Centurion card. Tomorrow, you are Chloe Lefebvre Bennett. You are a lost cousin from the Paris branch of the family. You are an emerging artist, a sculptor, perhaps. You are independently wealthy, devastatingly chic, and you have just arrived in New York. He'll never believe it, Chloe said. He knows who I am. He thinks he knows, but his arrogance won't let him believe a waitress could be this smart. He'll be suspicious, yes, but he'll also be intrigued. A beautiful, talented woman who humiliated him and is now, suddenly, in his world. He won't be able to resist. He'll think he can tame you, buy you, own you, just like he did your father. He'll want to be the one to break you. Genevieve's driver opened the door. You will check into the penthouse suite. A team will be there in the morning. Hair, wardrobe, elocution, finance. You were born for this world, Chloe. You've just been delayed. Chloe stepped out of the car. And then what? And then, Genevieve said, her eyes gleaming in the dark. You go to the Sotheby's Contemporary Art Auction on Thursday. Clayton will be there. He's trying to buy a Basquiat. Make sure he sees you. And this time, Miss Bennett, make sure you're the one holding the gavel. 3 days. In 3 days, Chloe Bennett was deconstructed and rebuilt. The team Genevieve sent was not a glam squad. It was a military unit. A former Mossad agent taught her situational awareness and micro-expression analysis. A Wall Street hedge fund manager taught her the language of billionaires, how to discuss yields, portfolios, and art as an asset class. A stylist who dressed royalty burned Chloe's entire wardrobe and replaced it with a curated collection of quiet, lethal elegance. Givenchy, Chanel, Brunello Cucinelli. The hardest part was not the clothes or the money. It was the stillness. As a waitress, she was trained to be invisible, to move on the periphery. As Chloe Lefebvre Bennett, she had to command the center of any room she entered, to hold her space, to meet every stare with a look of polite, unshakable boredom. She learned. She shed her old skin. But beneath the $5,000 cashmere, the waitress's sharp, observant eyes remained. Thursday night, the Sotheby's auction. The room was buzzing, a different kind of crowd from the gala. This was sharper, faster money. The air crackled with competitive energy. Chloe entered, not with Genevieve, but alone. She wore a simple, perfectly cut black Givenchy dress. No jewelry, save for a pair of diamond studs that had belonged to Genevieve's mother. She looked expensive and untouchable. She saw him immediately. Clayton was in the front row, paddle in hand, Brenda Holloway next to him, looking bored. He was in his element, a predator at a feeding frenzy. Chloe did not approach him. She took a seat 3 rows behind him, on the aisle. She got a paddle. She waited. The auction droned on. A Warhol, a Coons. Then, Lot 34. Untitled, Boxer, by Jean-Michel Basquiat. We begin the bidding at $20 million, the auctioneer said. Clayton's paddle shot up. 20 million. Another bidder. 21. Clayton instantly. 22. It was a pissing contest, and he was determined to win. The bidding climbed. 30 million, 32, 35, 37 million from a bidder on the phone. Clayton looked annoyed. 38 million, he snapped. The room paused. The phone bidder was silent. Going once, going twice. A new paddle went up in the third row. 40 million, the auctioneer said, his eyes finding Chloe. The entire room turned. Who was this? Brenda Holloway whispered something to Clayton. He turned in his seat. He saw her. His face. It was a masterpiece. Shock, confusion, rage, and then a slow, deep, burning curiosity. He knew it was her, but it couldn't be. This woman, in this place, bidding against him. It was impossible. He turned back around. 41 million. Chloe's paddle went up instantly. 42 million. The room was electric. A two-person war had just broken out. Clayton. 43. Chloe. 44. She wasn't even looking at him. She was looking at the auctioneer with a placid, almost bored expression. Clayton was fuming. He was being challenged by the waitress. 47 million, he yelled, jumping to the bid. The room gasped. Chloe paused. She tapped her paddle against her chin. Clayton was grinning now. He had her. She was out of her depth. Chloe's paddle went up. 50 million. Silence. Clayton's grin was gone. 50 million was his hard limit, the number his CFO had approved. He knew it. And somehow she knew it too. Genevieve's hedge fund manager had been very, very good. Clayton was shaking. He had to have it. But going once, going twice, sold. The gavel cracked. To paddle 214. Chloe did not smile. She did not look at Clayton. She simply handed her paddle to an attendant and stood up. As she walked up the aisle to leave, she coincidentally passed his row. She paused, as if just noticing him. "Oh," she said, her voice soft and cool. "Mr. Vanderbilt, what a surprise to see you here." He stood up, his body blocking her path. He was taller than her, but in that moment, she felt like the one looking down. "Who are you?" he hissed. "Chloe. Lefevre Bennett," she said, offering a cool hand. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced." His eyes burned into hers. "You're the waitress." Her mask was perfect, a small, confused frown. "Waitress? Oh, you mean at the gala? That was a dare. A silly bet with my godmother, Genevieve." "Genevieve?" he spat. "Genevieve Beaufort. You know her. She's dreadful," Chloe said with a light, airy laugh. "She bet me I couldn't last a night as a normal person. I won, obviously, and I must thank you, Mr. Vanderbilt. Your generosity to that little dance of mine? It paid for this." She patted the air where the Basquiat would metaphorically hang. It was a lie, a beautiful, perfect, insulting lie. Genevieve had fronted the money, but the lie served its purpose. It explained everything, her presence, her skill, her money, in a way his arrogant mind could process. She wasn't a threat. She was a spoiled brat, another member of his class. He began to laugh, a low, appreciative chuckle. He had been played. He respected it. "Brenda," he said, not looking at his date. "Go get the car. I'll be right there." Brenda, humiliated, scurried away. He turned back to Chloe, his eyes appraising her in a new, dangerous way. "A dare. That's good. That's very good. So, Chloe Lefevre Bennett, what are you really after?" "I just told you," she said, motioning to the auction stage. "A Basquiat. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to arrange for shipping." She went to move past him. He put a hand on her arm. His grip was light, but it felt like a steel cuff. "No," he said, his voice low. "You humiliated me, and now you've cost me my painting. I think you owe me dinner." This was the hook, the invitation. "I don't think so," she said. "I have a painting you might like. It's a Caravaggio. You may have seen it. It's on loan to my penthouse. You should see it. Properly." "Is that an invitation to see your art collection, Mr. Vanderbilt? Or your etchings?" "It's an invitation to a world you've only pretended to be in. Chloe," he said, his voice a purr. "I want to know who you really are." "Be careful what you wish for," she said, pulling her arm from his grip. "You might not like what you find." Saturday, 8 o'clock. He slipped a card into her hand. "Don't be late. I hate bad manners." She walked away, his eyes burning into her back. The first lock had been picked. Clayton Vanderbilt's penthouse was not a home. It was a sterile glass and steel monument to his own ego, hovering over Central Park like a predator's nest. The walls were white. The furniture was black and angular. The art was cold and massive. And there, dominating the living room, was the Caravaggio from the gala. "It was on loan to the gala," Clayton said, handing her a glass of wine. "But I own it. There's a difference. People like Genevieve. They curate. They protect. They're custodians. I acquire." "A beautiful distinction," Chloe said, sipping the wine. It was a Chateau Margaux, a $3,000 bottle. She was supposed to be impressed. She just felt cold. "She doesn't like me," he continued, walking to the window, "because I don't follow the rules. Her family has been shuffling the same pile of money around for 200 years. I made mine from nothing." "From IP acquisitions, I read," Chloe said, testing the line. His head turned sharply. "You've done your homework." "I'm an artist," she lied. "I'm interested in how art becomes property." He smiled. This was the opening he wanted. "Then you, more than anyone, will appreciate this." He led her down a hall, which ended at a massive, brushed steel door. He pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner. The door hissed open, revealing a room that was not an art gallery, but a data center. It was climate-controlled, the only sound the hum of servers. In the center, on a pedestal, was not a painting, but a single, spinning hard drive, illuminated by a spotlight. "What is this?" Chloe asked. "That," Clayton said, "is my Mona Lisa. It's my first true acquisition, the Aura algorithm." He gestured to the far wall, which was a floor-to-ceiling screen. "I bought the data from a failed choreographer years ago. The man was a fool. He had no idea how to monetize his art. I did." He tapped a console. The screen flickered to life. A silhouette appeared, a 3D motion capture rendering of a man. The man began to dance. Chloe's breath hitched. Her wine glass slipped. She caught it, but a splash of red stained the white marble floor. It was him. It was her father. It wasn't a recording. The AI was using his source code to generate a new dance. But the movements, the turn of the head, the line of the arm, it was him, his ghost, trapped in a digital cage, forced to dance for eternity on his killer's wall. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Clayton said, mesmerized by the screen. "It's perfect. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't ask for a cut. It doesn't get an ego. It just performs. This is the foundation of my empire." Chloe was frozen. The blood had drained from her face. She felt an overwhelming urge to be sick. It's lonely," she managed to whisper. Clayton laughed. "It's not lonely. It's data. Don't be so sentimental." His phone buzzed, a high-priority alert. He scowled. "One moment. My Tokyo office." He stepped just outside the vault to take the call, the door hissing open. He was still watching her, his guard up. "Don't touch anything. It's sensitive." The door was open. He was distracted. This was her only chance. She walked to the console. She wasn't just a dancer. She had been paying her mother's bills, managing her Juilliard loans, and coding websites on the side for 5 years to make ends meet. She knew her way around a file system. She saw the main directory. Aura Core. She needed the acquisition files. IPACQ. It was password protected, she thought. His arrogance, his ego, the painting he just bought. She typed Basquiat. Access denied. She typed Caravaggio. Access denied. The digital silhouette of her father was still dancing. He was performing a piece she remembered. A piece he'd choreographed for her mother. It was called Sanctuary. She typed Sanctuary. Access denied. Clayton was pacing on his call. I don't care what the futures market says. She was running out of time. What was the one thing he was proudest of? The one thing he saw as his true foundation? She looked at the hard drive on the pedestal. Aura Core. She looked at the screen. The name of the file being used. Aura master.dat. She typed Aura. Access granted. A list of folders appeared. Contracts, transfers, analytics, and one folder, Adler, Lawrence. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She clicked it. Inside, bank transfer receipts, wiring millions to an offshore account, scanned contracts, and one video file, Adler final.mp4. Her hand was shaking. She double-clicked it. The video opened. It was grainy, time-stamped a decade ago. Clayton, looking younger, sitting across from Lawrence Adler, her Uncle Larry, the man who had wept at her father's funeral. Adler was terrified. I can't, Clayton. Pierre trusted me. It's his life's work. Clayton's voice, cold and reptilian. Pierre is dead. He left you with a mountain of debt. I'm offering you a new life. You're going to cook the books. You're going to file for Chapter 11. You will sell me the IP for the agreed-upon price. It's criminal, Adler stammered. What's criminal? Clayton said, sliding a photo across the table. Is what you did in Vegas last month. The one your wife doesn't know about. The one that could send you to prison for a very, very long time. You will do this, or I will ruin you. Then I'll buy the company anyway. It wasn't just theft. It wasn't just IP acquisition. It was blackmail. It was criminal conspiracy. It was the proof. I send it to the cloud, she whispered to herself. No, his security would flag a data transfer that big. She saw a USB port on the console. She looked in her Chanel clutch. The Mossad agent. Always have a data out. Always. There it was. A tiny flash drive disguised as a lipstick. She plugged it in. Copying. The deal is closed. Clayton's voice boomed from the hallway. Sell it, all of it. The call was over. Copying. 90%. He was walking back. 99% copy complete. She ripped the drive out and snapped it back into the lipstick casing, dropping it in her bag. She spun from the console just as he walked in. He stopped. He looked at her face. It was pale, shocked, terrified. He looked at the console. The Adler final.mp4 window was still open. He didn't yell. He didn't move. His face, which had been amused and arrogant, turned to stone. You, he said, his voice terrifyingly soft. The vault door hissed shut behind him, a heavy magnetic thud as it locked. You know, he said, straightening his tie. I was really starting to like you. I thought you were just a gold digger. But you're a thief. He tapped his watch, a silent alarm. I was right the first time, though, he said, walking toward her. You are just like your father. Sentimental. Predictable. You killed him, she whispered. I beat him, Clayton corrected. There's a difference. He's an asset. I'm an owner. And you're a liability. He smiled. My security team will be here in 90 seconds. They will escort you to a very quiet, very permanent vacation. And that little video, It will be erased, along with you." The vault door hissed shut. It wasn't a loud noise, but the finality of it was deafening. A heavy magnetic thud sealed the room, cutting Chloe off from the world. The only sound was the low electric hum of the servers, the digital heart of Clayton's empire, and the prison of her father's ghost. Clayton hadn't moved. He stood by the door, his face a mask of cold, terrifying calm. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed, like a man who'd found a crack in a priceless sculpture. "You," he said, his voice terrifyingly soft. He straightened his tie. "You know, I was really starting to like you. I thought you were just a gold digger, a brilliant, beautiful shark. I respect sharks." He took a slow step toward her. The room felt 10 degrees colder. "But you're not a shark. You're a thief. And worse," he sneered, "you're sentimental. Just like him." He nodded at the wall, where the digital silhouette of Pierre Bennett was still dancing, oblivious in its endless perfect loop. "I was right the first time. At the gala," Clayton continued, his voice a low, conversational purr. He was enjoying this. "You are just a failed waitress in a $10,000 dress." He tapped a command on his watch, a quick, triple tap. A silent alarm. "My security team will be here in 90 seconds, he said, as if discussing the weather. "They are very, very good. They will escort you to the service elevator. You will be a tragic story. A new, wealthy socialite, heartbroken over our little fight, who walked right off the penthouse terrace. It's clean, sad, plausible." Chloe's back was against the console. She could feel the vibration of the machinery through her hands. He wasn't just threatening her, he was narrating her obituary. "And that," he gestured to the Adler final.mp4 file, still open on the screen, "will be erased. The lipstick drive will be melted. And you will be just as silent as your father." You killed him," she whispered, the words thick in her throat. "I beat him," Clayton corrected, his voice finally rising. "There's a difference. He had art. He had passion. I had a plan. He's an asset. I'm an owner." He took another step, closing the distance. "And you, Chloe, are a liability. So what will you do with your last 60 seconds? Cry, beg? Try to dance your way out?" That was it. The same taunt, the same arrogance that had started this all. He expected her to crumble. He expected tears. What he got was a cold, clear rage that burned away every last shred of her fear. "You're right," she said. Her voice was shaking, but not with terror. It was with the vibration of a plucked steel string. "My father. He was a fool. He trusted people. He believed art had a soul." Clayton smiled. He thought he'd broken her. And look where it got him. Dead. And working for me. "I'm not like him," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "You're just—" "He taught me to dance," she interrupted, her eyes snapping up to meet his. "But my mother taught me to code." Before his smile could fade, before he could process the shift, she lunged. Not for him, not for the door, for the console. He was a man who sat at desks, a man who moved markets. She was a woman whose body was a weapon of discipline and grace. He roared and lunged for her, a brute force grab. She didn't dodge. She moved. It was a pivot, a slip and pivot her father had drilled into her. She used Clayton's own momentum, his lunge carrying him past her as she spun on the ball of her foot, her body flowing around him like water around a rock. He stumbled, his expensive shoe skidding on the marble, catching himself on the console. She was already there, her fingers flying across the interface. What did you do?" he snarled, his calm finally shattering. He scrambled to his feet. Her eyes had found it seconds before, a button she hadn't understood. Broadcast Legacy. It wasn't just for streaming, it was for the shareholders, the quarterly address. Legacy. Her fingers hit the sequence. Initiate. Protocol. Legacy. A window popped up, connecting to Vanderbilt Ent Global Board. A chime echoed in the vault. A connection was made. The main wall screen flickered, replacing her father's silhouette with a grid of 12 faces. They were in Tokyo, London, Dubai. They were old, powerful, and looked annoyed. "Clayton, you're 40 minutes late," a man with a white beard grumbled from the center square. "What is this? Where is your report? And who in God's name is that woman?" In the bottom right square, Genevieve Beaufort sat, her expression utterly, terrifyingly unreadable. She just watched. Clayton froze. This was a nightmare. This was his board, his investors. "Turn it off!" he screamed, lunging for the console again. But Chloe was already there. She stepped into the camera's view, breathless, her hair wild, her eyes burning. "Hello, everyone," she said, her voice clear and strong, ringing with adrenaline. "My name is Chloe Lefevre Bennett. Mr. Vanderbilt is indisposed, but he asked me to play a short film for you." "Chloe, no!" he bellowed. "He calls it," she continued, her eyes locked on the camera, "the foundations of his company." She dragged the Adler Final.mp4 file into the active broadcast window. She hit play. The entire board watched. The grainy, time-stamped video filled the screen. They saw a younger Clayton Vanderbilt. They saw a weeping, terrified Lawrence Adler. They heard the threats. They heard the details of the blackmail. They heard, in his own words, the entire criminal conspiracy to fabricate a bankruptcy, defraud a company, and steal its assets. The vault was silent. The board was silent. The world was silent. Clayton stood like a statue, his face white, his knuckles paler. He wasn't watching the video. He was watching the faces on the board. He was watching his life's work, his reputation, his stock price, his entire fabricated world incinerate in real time. "My God," one of the board members whispered. That's criminal," said another. Genevieve Beaufort finally spoke, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Indeed, gentlemen, I believe this constitutes a flagrant violation of the Morals Clause, Section 4A of our corporate charter. I motion for an immediate emergency vote." The vault door hissed open. A flash of hope lit Clayton's eyes. He spun around, his face a mask of desperate relief. "Security! Get her! Seize her! Now!" But it wasn't his security team. It was two uniformed NYPD detectives, their hands on their holsters. Behind them stood Genevieve's personal head of security, a grim-looking man in a sharp suit. "Clayton Vanderbilt," the lead detective said, his voice flat, stepping into the vault. "You're under arrest for blackmail, conspiracy to commit fraud, and, well, the list is long, sir. Hands behind your back." Clayton stared, uncomprehending. His mind, so fast, so predatory, simply shut down. "Genevieve." "How?" he whispered, looking at her tiny square on the screen. You couldn't." Genevieve's voice came from the monitor, cold and clear as a winter morning. "Did you really think I'd let my goddaughter walk into the lion's den without a tracker and a live audio feed? You arrogant boy. My team has been in your building's security room for the last hour. We heard every word." She leaned into a camera. "The moment you locked that door and threatened her life, you elevated this from corporate malfeasance to kidnapping and felony menacing. You didn't just authorize a warrant, Clayton. You begged for one. Checkmate." The sound of steel ratcheting echoed in the vault. The detectives cuffed him. The man who saw everyone as an asset or liability was being managed. He looked at Chloe. His empire, his reputation, his freedom, gone, in less time than it took to play a single tango. His expression wasn't rage, it was total, blank incomprehension. He had been so certain of the rules of the world, and she had simply refused to play by them. Chloe didn't watch him. She didn't care. She looked past him, at the side screen, where the digital ghost of her father was still dancing. The AI was still running, unaware. She walked to the console, past the shell-shocked Clayton, as the detectives began to lead him out. Her fingers found the root directory. Aura Core. This was the real prison. This was the source code. This was his soul. She typed the command. Delete. Aura Core. A prompt appeared, blinking in the quiet room. Are you sure? This action is permanent. Chloe took a deep breath. She wasn't just deleting data. She was letting him go. She was ending his work, his legacy, to save his soul. She pressed enter. On the screen, the silhouette of Pierre Bennett stopped dancing. He stood still for a single, long second, in a posture of perfect, classical balance. Then, as if taking a final, respectful bow, he dissolved. Not in a glitch, but like particles of light, fading gently into the black. He was free. Chloe picked up her Chanel clutch. She tucked the lipstick flash drive inside. She walked out of the vault, past the detectives, past the stunned board members on the screen, and into the penthouse. She didn't look back. The room was filled with sunlight. Not the cold, sterile light of a penthouse, but a warm, dusty gold that streamed through tall, arched windows. The floor was polished hardwood, scuffed with the marks of passion and effort. The air smelled of rosin, sweat, and lemon oil polish. A simple, hand-painted sign on the glass door read, Bennett Lefebvre Dance Academy founder. Chloe Bennett. Inside, a class of 10 children, all ages, all sizes, were collapsing in a fit of laughter as they tried, and failed, to nail a complex chaîné turn. No, no! Chloe laughed, clapping her hands. She was in simple black sweats and a grey tank top, her hair in a messy bun. You're spinning like washing machines. Think, long neck, spot your target. Again. The door opened. Genevieve Beaufort walked in. She was not the grande dame of the gala. She wore simple, elegant linen trousers and a soft cashmere sweater. She looked softer. She stood by the wall, watching the class. She watched as Chloe knelt to help a tiny, shy girl find her balance, whispering in her ear, making her giggle. The board met yesterday, Genevieve said quietly, her voice just for Chloe. Chloe walked over, wiping her face with a towel. Oh, how's the liquidation going? Vanderbilt Enterprises is officially dissolved, Genevieve said. The assets are being broken up. His art, including the Caravaggio, has been seized and will be auctioned for a victims' restitution fund. You and your mother are at the top of that list. Good, Chloe said, her eyes on the kids. That'll pay for the bars. Genevieve smiled. They, officially, offered you his seat, Chloe. What was left of the board. They want to rebuild, and they want you. You could be a billionaire, you know. You could have it all back. The power, the name, the world you were supposed to have. Chloe watched the little girl she had just helped, who was now spinning, her face a mask of intense, joyful concentration. She nailed the turn. No, thank you, Chloe said softly. You're sure you could have anything? Chloe smiled, a real, warm smile that reached her eyes. He saw people as assets, she said, looking at Genevieve. He saw my father as data. I'm not interested in assets. I'm interested in this. She turned back to the class, her eyes shining. Okay, everyone, she clapped, her voice bright and full of life. "That was better. Now from the top. 1, 2, 3. And feel the music this time. Speak with your feet." As the simple piano waltz began, Chloe laughed, a sound of pure, unbridled freedom. She had reclaimed her father's name, not by taking his money, but by continuing his legacy. The dance is over, but the story of legacy has just begun. Chloe Bennett, the waitress who was dared to dance, didn't just win a bet. She reclaimed a stolen soul and freed her father's ghost. She brought a corrupt empire to its knees, not with violence or money, but with talent, intelligence, and the unbreakable power of a legacy. What you just heard was a story of ultimate triumph. If you were on the edge of your seat, if you believe that true power isn't about what you own, but what you create, then please hit that like button. This channel is dedicated to stories just like this. Subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a tale of justice and incredible twists. And please, share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that even when the world thinks you're just a waitress, you might be a queen in disguise. We'll see you in the next story.